Okay. Just setting up. We're good. Oops, just gotta move this. There. Alright. Yeah! We're good. How we doing, guys? We're rocking and rolling. I'm gonna try and bang out a good solid run right here. I see Pasta and Tim are with us. What is going on? Yeah. All right, let's see. Happy Equinox. Yep. Happy Equinox. Yeah, I just sprouted some beans myself. Oh, nice, dude. I didn't send you the picture. Pasta. I got 29 seeds. 29. Oh, baby. I just started germinating them the other day. I stuck them in some paper towels in an egg thingamajiggy with some water, and I gotta rewater them today. But anyway, yeah, I'm very excited to get this bad boy going. Let's see. So we are chapter 24, 323 out of 346, so we've got about 23 pages left. I'll try and shoot it over to you during like the break or something, let you see the pictures. Yeah, I ordered online from Focus. PHOCAS. That's where I got the seeds from. They seem to have the best price. Which what was it? I spent 80. I think I spent 80 to get 20, and they gave me 26 plus 3 bonus of a different variety. But anyway, regulations concerning a man who was overtaken by dusk on the eve of Sabbath while traveling and concerning feeding of cattle. This, I can already imagine, is going to involve a number of scenarios of a man walking his cow. Hey, Bane Bear. Bane buddy, you got to call me back. I tried to actually call you. I left you a voicemail in Bane voice because I wanted to talk. You would have liked the story that I don't want to share here on air. Mishnah. One who on the eve of Sabbath is overtaken by the dusk on the road must give his purse to a Gentile while it is yet day. Really? Oh, I am glad that I know this. I am going to follow a Jew around on the evening of Sabbath and catch him, overtake him, and then it's not stealing because all I have to do is be the Gentile that overtook him. Loopholes. Everybody go legally rob a Jew on Sabbath, okay? This is... No, don't do that. Don't do that. That's, granted, if they're Hasidic Jews, that's your fucking money they're running around with anyway. Socialism. All right. So, if there is no Gentile with him, he must put it on the ass as soon as he arrives at the outmost court, dwelling of the first town or village he reaches. He must take off all such things as may be handled on the Sabbath, and as for the things which must not be handled, he must loosen the cords so that they fall off themselves. Why was it allowed for a man to give his purse to the Gentile accompanying him? He, the Gentile, acts for him. Oh. They mean his Shabbat goy. Boo. Because it was known to the rabbis that a man is anxious about his money, and if it were not allowed, he might carry it himself in public ground, said Rabbah. He may do this with his own purse, but if he found something, he must not have it carried for him. Is this not self-evident? Did we not learn in the Mishnah, his purse? We might assume that the same would apply to something found, and the Mishnah says only his purse, because that is the usual occurrence. Hence, Rabbah teaches us as mentioned. Even in the case of something which was found, the prohibition applies, only if the man had not yet had it in his hand. But if he had, it is regarded the same as his purse. Am I sure I called the right number? I mean, I think I only have your last number you gave me. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing that I got. All right, let's see. But I'll figure all that out at a later time. In case that's what I did. Okay, did we not learn in the Mishnah? Anyway, in the sorry, did we not learn in the Mishnah his purse? We might assume that the way would apply to something found, and the Mishnah says only his purse, because that is the usual occurrence. Hence, Rabbah teaches us as mentioned, even in the case of something which was found, the prohibition applies. Only if the man had not yet had it in his hand, but if he had, it is regarded the same as his purse. Oh, by the way, we're listening to Enslaved tonight. Old school pagan black metal. If there is no Gentile with him, etc. If there is a Gentile with him, he must give his purse to the Gentile. Why not put it on the ass in the first place? Because concerning the ass, there is a commandment to let it rest, but no such commandment exists for a Gentile. How is the case if the man had accompanying him an ass, a deaf mute, an idiot, and a minor? To whom must he give his purse in the event? He must put it on the ass. You see, why would you want to be a Jew? Look, as a Gentile, there's no such commandment. It's just like, you don't have to do what the Jew do. That's all. All right. Okay, yeah, give me a call tonight. I'll be off the air. I may go about 3 hours. It depends on how long this chapter is, and how I want to break it down. Okay. He must put it on the ass. Why so? Because the deaf mute and the minor are human beings, and he might by accident give it to an Israelite who was not a deaf mute or a minor. How is it if he had with him a deaf mute and an idiot only? He must give it to the idiot. Because a deaf mute has more sense than an idiot. How is it with an idiot and a minor? He must give it to the idiot. Wouldn't it be enough just to give it to a competently below average profane Gentile? Wouldn't that be your absolute best bet? Because of the racial commandment problem, right? Anyway. What should he do then? Said Etziak. there was another mode of procedure which the sages would not reveal. What was that? He should carry it less than 4 ells at a time, i.e., carry it a little less than 4 ells and stop. Then start and carry it on again for less than 4 ells and so on. Why would the sages not reveal this? Because it is written in Proverbs 25:2, it is the honor of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. You know, I really do kind of see the wisdom in that, right? Because my mind immediately went to the Great Hunt, right? Odin goes on the Great Hunt, and Odin is both a god of concealment, but also as a king will search a matter out. It even could be almost an Odin to Tyr dynamic, where the honor of God to conceal a thing is Odin, and the honor of kings is to search out a matter is kind of like Tyr. Especially with the honor that's going on between both of these. All right, Bane. Yeah, but yes, give me a call later. I'm sure within 3 hours you can even play catch up on this stream if you want to enjoy it. Because who else? What other kind of motherfucker in the universe could make the Talmud fun to listen to? Anybody. Name one motherfucker that can fucking help, because I care about how brain-numbingly horrible the sit-in for this is. Right? For there to be at least a 1 level of my style of delivery to help you get to the next level for those that want to take this to another serious jump, right? This is kind of like next level student teacher strategy, relationship, curriculum, structure, word salad. Okay, we have learned in a Boretha. Our Elizar said, on the day when the 18 precautionary measures were instituted in the attic of Hananiah ben Hatziak ben Geran, this measure concerning the purse of the traveler was also instituted, v. that he should not carry it, but give it to the Gentile, and the measure of laws was made heaping full. Ar Yehoshua, however, says that the measure was smoothened in to great a degree, and we have learned that Ar Elizar meant to say what his simile illustrates, via there was a basket filled with cucumbers and beets to the brim, and if a man put in mustard seed, there is an addition, without, however, forcing out anything else. Thus the measure was full, but not overflowing. Ar Yehoshua, however, compares it as follows. There was a tub filled with honey, and nut there were thrown into it, in consequence of which the honey overflowed and some was spilled. This means that by the institution of those precautionary measures, the Mosaic laws were undermined. The master said, if there was no Gentile with him, he should put it on the ass. How is it that he may do this? If he put it on the ass, he will be compelled to drive the ass, and surely this is also labor, which is prohibited on the Sabbath, as it is written in Exodus 20:10. On it thou shalt not do any work, said Ar Eda bar Abha. The man must put the purse on the ass while the latter is walking along. In that case, no transfer from one fixed point takes place, because while both are walking, it cannot be said that the purse is resting in one particular place. It is, however, impossible that the ass should not rest at some place for a little while. It should have said ass in the chapter, because I'm getting a lot more ass than I am heifer. And, there's a lot of heifers out there with quite the ass. Anyway, when the ass rests, the man removes the purse, and when it commences to walk again, he puts it back. If that is so, it would be the same if he would transfer his purse to a fellow Israelite while walking, and he would never be guilty of the act of transferring from one fixed place and depositing in another. Said Ar Papa, an act which, if committed by one man unassisted, would make him liable for a sin offering, e.g., if he, while running or walking, should pick up something off the ground, even without stopping, he would become liable for a sin offering. He must not commit with the assistance of a companion, but if he did so, he is not liable for a sin offering. E.g., if he picked up a thing and placed it on his companion while the latter was walking, in that event, neither is culpable, for the one did not deposit it in a fixed place, and the other did not remove it from a fixed place. Such acts, however, as must not be committed with the aid of a companion, may be done with the assistance of an ass in the first place. Ar Eda Bar Abha said again, if a man has a bundle on his shoulders before dusk on the Sabbath, while on the road, he may run with the burden until he reaches home, but he must not walk his usual gait. Why so? Because if he walks in the usual manner, he might stop, and by stopping, carrying out the prohibited transfer from one fixed point and depositing in another. When he reaches home, however, he must stop for some time, and thus he would bring a thing from public ground into private ground. The remedy for this is to throw the bundle from his shoulders backwards and not in the usual manner. Rabbah, the brother of Ar-Mari bar Rachel, taught the following decree in the name of Ar Yohanan: one who drives cattle on the Sabbath, even if they are burdened, is free. Why so? If he did so unintentionally, he cannot be liable for a sin offering. Sorry. Wait, how did I lose my spot right here? Why so? If he did so intentionally, he cannot be liable for a sin offering, because Sabbath laws are identical with those of idolatry. In like manner, as a man cannot be guilty of idolatry unless he worship with his own body, so it is with the sabbatical law. Right, and we talked in the last segment, the last show, about somewhere in the last show, about this, about interpretation of the meaning of worship, which gets into the psychological aspect of worship, which is the intent focus upon, such as my cell phone, right? This audience, my guitar. These things basically become worship, and we lie to ourselves about that anyway, because the Jews do it, the Christians do it, the Muslims do it, everybody does it. You know, they do it in the name of God, right? So you're not worshiping swordplay. You're practicing with the sword, you know, for the glory of God. There's a decree, and here's the law of the decree. And they're playing this game on bloodline. So if they also know their tribe, they know their place in the social order, and structure of their society. You see, they do things this way so their economic structure is manageable. So they keep Babylon alive as a parasite through the welfare program, taking all the money given and instead of circulating it in the general economy, they just circulate it amongst themselves so they can advance certain things they are using money for, depending on what temple is doing that amongst people that are adhering to the Talmud. Right? Don't think every fucking Jew that reads the Talmud is adhering to the Talmud. But everything is so open to interpretation. People are just looking at it and saying, you know, I am kind of interested in maybe doing X, Y, and Z things because I'm Jewish. And has nothing to do with what level of Epstein you're on, right? I'm not trying to condemn anybody here, but because obviously these people are doing this today and there's no fucking real problem other than what's being exposed in New Jersey right now, which is not really a problem. You're just seeing this is what it is. And even if say this is them frauding the public, are they hurting anyone? Right? The fraud in and of itself, right, that's one thing. But I'm just saying, is there an issue that you want to fucking say is really going on here, right? Because they're kind of just this under, you know, like, because you have to ask yourselves, have they pooled their welfare together to finance a Jewish lobby that goes under the radar and blends in with regular socialism? But they keep a super low profile, right? And it's like, guys, you could be here and be a whole culture and a community and have your thing. But you gotta fucking have, you know, but you have to be self-sufficient. You don't have to, you know, we're not even saying you gotta work. This is America. You don't fucking gotta work if you don't gotta work. But we have certain universal standards by which we tolerate an American Gentile not working. There's no law that says that the Jews get to play it any different. You are, if you are an American citizen, even if you are a dual citizen, if you are an American citizen, you still have plenty of days of the week in which you can sustain yourself with a job. Work 3 days a week. Okay? If you need that much time to keep yourself from the anxiety of sin offerings on the Sabbath, I promise you that's the way to go. All right. I need to refill my damn cup. I can't believe I went through that in the first segment. I'm on fire though. Whoo! I'm telling you, man, this is going to be a crazy Aries season, and this is going to be quite the Aryan year. Well after the sun is done with these fucking transits. Happy fucking New Year again. Woo!
I am the voiceless words. I cannot speak to
nice and groovy. So, yeah, let me mute that. Yeah, this, which album? What do they call this damn album? Oh, a second. There we go. Just trying to set it up. So the first song was Convoys to Nothingness. Then this was called The Voices. This is Monumention is the name of the album. This was from 2001. All right. So we're back in saddle. Ar Eda Bar Abba said again, if a man has a bundle on his shoulders before dusk on the Sabbath while on the road, he may run with the burden until he reaches home, but he must not walk his usual gait. Why so? Because if he walks in the usual manner, he might stop, and by stopping, carry out the prohibited transfer from one fixed point and depositing in another. When he reaches home, however, he must stop for some time, and thus he would bring a thing from public ground into private ground. The remedy for this is to throw the bundle from his shoulders backwards and not in the usual manner. Rabbah, the brother of Armari bar Rachel, taught the following decree in the name of Ar Yohanan, one who drives cattle on the Sabbath, even if they are burdened, is free. Why so? If he did so unintentionally, he cannot be liable for a sin offering, because Sabbath laws are identical with those of idolatry. In the like manner as a man cannot be guilty of idolatry unless he worship with his own body, so it is with the sabbatical law. If he performs labor through the medium of his cattle without doing any himself, he cannot be guilty. Even if he did it intentionally, he is also not guilty. Why so? Because we have learned in a Mishnah, Trak Sanhedrin, among those who are subject to capital punishment by stoning is he who violates the Sabbath by an act which, if done intentionally, carries with it such punishment, stoning, and which, if done unintentionally, makes one liable for a sin offering. Hence, if the unintentional performance of such an act does not carry with it the liability to bring a sin offering, its intentional performance cannot carry with it the punishment of stoning. I don't even know if that makes any fucking sense. This is the absurdest. There must be. This probably is a horrible explanation. You are forced to not just accept that this is how you do it, but you are forced to accept this rationalization of why it's that way as well. You're running around life needing to believe this principle to do this thing, which this principle has ramifications and meaning outside of your Sabbath non-ritual. Hence, if the unintentional performance of such an act does not carry with it liability to bring a sin offering, its intentional performance cannot carry with it the punishment of stoning, nor the punishment of stripes, because where the penalty for the violation of a negative commandment is death, stripes cannot be inflicted. And even according to the Tana, who holds that stripes can be inflicted for such violation, is in this case it could not be done, because were the verse to be read, thou shalt not do any labor, nor thy cattle, it would be right. But the verse distinctly says, thou shalt not do any labor, neither thou, etc., nor thy cattle. Hence, when the work was not done jointly by the man and his cattle, he cannot be punished in any manner for a violation of the Sabbath. Okay. So effectively, if he knows his cow's habits, or he's trained his cow, he can kind of send the cow off with little to no effort for the intention of what is being carried by the cow to be being sent across the way during Sabbath. Right? You know, plowing a field by itself. Because he's got a way of getting the cow to just do it without his lead. Right? So anyway, as soon as he arrives at the outmost court, etc., said Arjuna, if the ass was laden with glassware, he may bring cushions and place them on the ground, so that when he loosens the cords, the glassware may fall on the cushions and escape being broken. We have learned, however, that such vessels as may be handled on the Sabbath may be removed from the ass. And why may not the glassware be handled, said Arjuna, refers to glassware which belongs to a surgeon, and being dirty, bloody, is unfit for use in a household. In that case, then, the man would render the cushions which he places on the ground to receive the falling glassware unfit for their proper use, and this is prohibited on the Sabbath. The cushions are only to be used in order to break the fall of the glassware. And after the glassware rolls off on the ground, the cushions can be used as before. We have learned in a Boretha, our Simon ben Yochai said, if a sheaf of grain, the tithes of which had not yet been separated, is on the back of the ass, the man may push it off with his head so that it fall to the ground. The ass of our Gamaliel was once laden with honey, and the Sabbath having set in, our Gamaliel would not allow the ass to be unloaded until the Sabbath was over. This proved too much for the animal, and it dropped dead. We have learned in the Mishnah that such things as may be handled on the Sabbath may be removed from the animal. Why was not the honey removed? The honey had become spoiled. If the honey was spoiled, why was it brought? It was intended to be used for the bruises on camels, when the cords should have been loosened and the honey allowed to fall off. The honey was in inflated skins and would have burst if allowed to fall. Then cushions should have been placed on the ground to receive them. The cushions would have become soiled and thus rendered unfit for use. Pity should have been taken on the animal, and it should not have been allowed to stand laden all day. Pity for animals is only a rabbinical institution, according to our Gamaliel, and thus he could not observe it lest he violate the Sabbath. Abai once saw Rabbah playing with his little son and setting him on the back of an ass. So he said to him, "Why does master use an animal on Sabbath?" And Rabbah answered, "This cannot be called using an animal in the regular manner, but just incidental use, and that was not prohibited by the rabbis." Abai objected, "Have we not learned that if 2 walls of a booth to be used on the Feast of Tabernacles were made by hand, and the 3rd wall was already made by a tree, the booth might be used for ritual purposes, but it is not allowed to ascend to the roof of the booth on a festival because the tree serves as a support to the roof, and by ascending the roof, the tree would be used, which is prohibited." Yeah, isn't it funny that he mentions ritual right there? I wonder if somebody's going to say anything about ritual, because I thought they weren't doing rituals. Because rituals are witchcraft. Right? I thought they had a different word for it. Or maybe they just need to fucking Be honest. Hence we see that although that would be incidental and not direct use, still is prohibited. Rabbah answered, in the case cited by thee, a tree is referred to, the branches of which were also part of the roof. The Mishnah seems to have this meaning attributed to it by Rabbah, for in a later clause it is stated that should the tree which partly supports the booth be removed and the booth can stand by itself, one may ascend it. Hence the tree is regarded as an independent wall. Mishnah. One may untie bundles of straw for cattle, also stew, tucks for them, but one must not undo tied bundles of zerin. Herbs used as fodder and carob pods must not be cut up for cattle, large or small. Ad Yehuda permits the cutting up of carob pods for small cattle. Gemara said Ad Huna, there is no difference between bundles of straw and stalks, except that the former are tied twice, while the latter are treble tied, and by zerin is meant the young branches of a cedar tree, which when young are still tender and are eaten by cattle, and the Mishnah should be explained thus: one may untie bundles of straw for cattle and also strew them. In the same may be done with stalks, but not with zerin. The latter must neither be untied nor strewn, said Arhista. What reason has Arhuna for explaining the Mishnah in this manner? He means to say that an account of such things as are already proper fodder for cattle, one may trouble himself on Sabbath, but on account of such as must first be prepared as fodder, one should not trouble himself. Ad Yehuda, however, says that bundles of straw and zerin are identical, except that the former were tied twice and the latter trebly. But stalks signify cedar boughs, and he explains the Mishnah thus: we may untie bundles of straw for cattle, but not strew them. Talks may also be strewn. The zerin, however, may be untied, but not strewn. Said Rabbah, what is the reason for Ad Yehuda's explanation? He holds that we may prepare things for the use of cattle, but we must not trouble ourselves on account of such things as are already fit fodder for cattle. Fit fodder. Fee fi fo fum. Fa 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 fa. An objection was made to the foregoing based on the latter clause of the Mishnah. Herbs used for fodder and carob pods must not be cut up for cattle. As herbs are mentioned in conjunction with carob pods, we must assume that as the herbs were soft, so were also the carob pods, and it being prohibited to cut them up, we see that with such things as are already proper fodder, we must not trouble ourselves, and this is the contrary to the dictum of Arhuna. Arhuna might say to the contrary that as the carob pods are hard, so also are the herbs. What he might say, we're going to go on might with this. Anyway, where do we find that herbs should be cut up for cattle? They generally eat them as they are. This refers to young calves and mule colts, Another objection was raised. Come and bear. One may cut up pumpkins for cattle and carrion for dogs. Then we may say that as carrion is soft, so also are the pumpkins, and hence we see that we may trouble ourselves even with such articles as are already fit fodder for cattle, and this is contradictory to Ad Yehuda's opinion. Ad Yehuda might say to the contrary that as the pumpkins were hard, so was also the carrion. How can that be? Excuse me. How can that be? Supposing it was the carcass of an elephant, or the dogs were young and could not eat carrion without having it cut up for them. Mishnah. A camel must not be crammed to fatten it, nor may it be forced to eat, but the food may be put into its mouth. Calves must not be crammed, but the food may be put into their mouths. Poultry may be fed and crammed, but water be poured on bran. But the bran must not be kneaded. One must not put water before bees, or before doves in a dove cot, but one may put it before geese, before poultry, before house pigeons. Oh, okay. Well, Mike Tyson approves. Okay. Gemara. What is meant by must not be crammed? Said Ad Yehuda. By this it is meant that the stomach of the camel should not be turned into a feed bag. Can such a thing be done? Said Adhemaiah of Difti. Oh, we have to make sure it's Yadamai of Dipthi. It's very important. There's an important Jeremiah, and then there's a Jeremiah that's just from Difti. Okay, and that almost makes him sound more important because he's from somewhere. But it's just that he's not the R Jeremiah. He is this Difti guy, the other Jeremiah that isn't important. Anyway, who knows why they do it this way? I don't want to know. I don't care. It's all a silly trap to overanalyze it. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I saw with my own eyes that an itinerant merchant fed his camel a measure of grain, and when it had consumed that, he forced another measure down its throat. Calves must not be crammed, but the food may be put into their mouths, etc. What is the difference between cramming and putting food into the calf's mouth? Aruhuda said the cramming is accomplished when the food is stuffed down into the calf's mouth so that it cannot eject it. And putting food into its mouth is merely as is implied by the term. Arhista said that in both cases, the food is forced down so that the calf cannot eject it. But in cramming, some instrument is used and the other is done by hand. Sure. I don't know why you'd be cramming food in anyone's mouth anyway. Okay, Yosef objected. We have learned of Boretha that poultry may be crammed, and so much the more food may be given to the poultry a little at a time. I do find it funny, this idea that, yeah. Hold on a sec. Sorry. Yeah, your poultry, it can be crammed, baby. You can cram that poultry all day. And so much the more food may be given to the poultry in a little at a time. The contrary is the case with doves. Food must not be given them even a little at a time, and much less may they be crammed. But what is the difference between cramming and forcing them to eat a little at a time? Shall we assume that by cramming is meant forcing the food down by hand, and by giving them food a little at a time is meant throwing it to them? If so, why should doves not be fed in that manner? Is it then prohibited to throw them food? We must therefore say that in both cases the food is given by hand, but in cramming the food is forced down so that it cannot be ejected, while in the other case it can be ejected. If this applies to poultry, then we must certainly assume that as for calves, cramming is done by forcing the food down with an instrument. You know, that sounds like you're putting the animals through a whole lot of fucking unnecessary trouble on behalf of your nonsense. And you I don't like how you people talk about your dominion over animals, right? Humans, we got our relationship with everything else that we experience in this world. And it's very unique from the cohesion of everybody else in nature, right? And that level of awareness that we have in ourselves has made us hate ourselves, because it just seems like everything I do hurts everything. And that's part of building a Gnostic trap in you, you see. All right. If this applies to poultry, then we must certainly assume that that for calves, cramming is done by forcing the food down with an instrument, and this would be contrary to our Jeremiah. Yehuda might say that by feeding poultry is meant throwing food to them, and the reason that one must not feed doves is because they do not belong to him, whereas poultry belongs to him and must be fed by him, as we have learned in Aboretha, that one may give food to a dog but not to a pig, and the reason is that a man is in duty bound to feed his dog, but a pig that he does not own he needs not feed. But what if you own a pig? Are you saying you can't own pig? I know you can't eat pig, but you can't own one. But there's also cows that you don't own out there. So what about a cow, not a pig? Something that doesn't bother your kosher department. You know, another goat, a horse, whatever. Yeah, something that just don't make sense to me with that. Duty bound to feed the bug mouth to feed. Said Adashi, this we also learn from our Mishnah. One must not put it before bees or before doves in a dovecot, but we may put it before geese, poultry, and house pigeons. We must assume the reason of the Mishnah to be because one is not obliged to take care of the bees and doves, but must take care of those which he owns according to this. Then why is water only spoken of? Why not wheat or barley? We must say the water is easily obtainable, and hence there is no necessity to trouble oneself on that account. Okay, we're going to take another break. Let me see. I lost track of the chat room. How's the chat room doing? Hey, Ashley's here. That's good. Zalero, what's going on, dude? Yeah, I know. Real heartburn, right? Okay. All right, guys. Let's get back to it. We have been listening to Monumention by Enslaved. This song we are now listening to. Yes. Vision, Sphere of the Elements, A Monument, Part 2, I think. Part 1's not on the album, apparently. And, okay. Hang on. All right, there we go. Caught that just in time. Sweet. Let me see. Before I open this up, I didn't get a chance. It's amazing how little you can get done. You think it takes 3 seconds to do all the things in your head that you can get done in 5 minutes, and then you run out of time to do 1 or 2 of them. Okay, all right. This chapter is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. We got about 6.5 pages to this whole chapter, right? We'll see how I feel by then. We've been live for an hour so far. I want to say it's going to take us about 45 minutes to get through 6, maybe. We'll see. Excuse me. Here we go. Aryona taught at the door of Nasi. It is written in Proverbs 29:7. The righteous considereth the cause of the indigent, whatever. I don't know why. That looks like something I would say all the time. Indigent. I'm going to say that's indigent. The cause of the indigent. Yes. That fits the spelling. The righteous, synonymous with the Holy One. Blessed be he. Knoweth that a dog hath not much food, and hath thus ordained that the food in his stomach remains undigested for 3 days, as we have learned in a Mishnah. How long must the food, carrion, remain in the stomach, that it may still be considered unclean? In the stomach of a dog 3 days, but in the stomach of a bird or a fish only as long as it would take it to burn up if thrown into the fire. Dear God, how do you fucking measure that without killing the bird? Said Hamnuna, from what was said above, it may be implied that one may throw food before a dog. How much? Said Armari. A small piece, and the dog should immediately be driven off. This refers to a dog in the field, but within the city, a strange dog should not be fed at all, lest he run after the man. However, a dog belonging to him may be fed, said Arpapa. There is nothing poorer than a dog and nothing richer than a pig, meaning that a dog is very fastidious about food, while a pig will eat anything. We have learned in a Boretha, in support of a dictum of Ar Yehuda, what is the difference between cramming and putting food into the mouth of a calf. Cramming is accomplished by laying the calf down, forcing open its mouth, and stuffing it with soaked grain and putting food into its mouth, is merely feeding and watering it separately while the calf is standing. Poultry may be fed and crammed, etc., said Bai. I asked my master, with whose opinion was the Mishnah in conformity, and he told me, with that of Aryos bar Yehuda, as we have learned, water must not be poured on bran, said Rabbi, but Aryos bar Yehuda said that it may be done. What does it mean about the camel's stomach? Zolero asks. It's got something, it's the same thing that we're talking about overall, which is digestion and something along the lines of how kosher it is, I think. They didn't say the word kosher, but there was kind of, they mentioned clean and unclean up above, right? And so this is in context to, like, I guess it dictates something about about the contents of the stomach in Sabbath, right? That's basically what it is. It's how the contents of the stomach of an animal changes things in the on the Sabbath with your use of animal, Hold on a second. So where was I now? We learned that water must be poured on bran. The rabbis taught. Shoot. I think I lost my place here, guys. Okay, wait. I feel like we have learned in a Boreth, calf down, opened its mouth, water separately while the calf is standing. But I feel like I was supposed to be at poultry may be fed. I'm going to read the passage above it. I'm really sorry. I don't know how I lost myself there. We have learned in the Boreth in support of the dictum of Ad Yehuda. What is the difference between cramming and putting food into the mouth of a calf? Cramming is accomplished by laying the calf down, forcing open its mouth and stuffing it with soaked grain, and putting food into its mouth is merely feeding and watering it separately while the calf is standing. Poultry may be fed and crammed, etc., said Abai. I asked my master, with whose opinion was the Mishnah in conformity? Okay, I remember reading that now already. Excuse me. And he told me, with that of Aryos bar Yehuda, as we have learned, water must not be poured on bran, said Rabbi. But Aryos bar Yehuda said that it may be done. The rabbis taught when water is poured on parched corn, the corn must not be kneaded on Sabbath. But others say that it may be kneaded. Who is meant by others, said Arhista. Aryos bar Yehuda, such is the case, however, only when it is done differently than on a weekday. How can it be done differently? By kneading a little at a time and not in a lump. All agree, however, that Shethaitha may be kneaded on the Sabbath and that Egyptian beer may be drunk. Was it not said that kneading was not allowed on the Sabbath? This presents no difficulty. Fine corn may be kneaded, but coarse must not, and even then it must be kneaded differently than on a weekday. How can this be done? On weekdays, the vinegar is first put in, and then the shitha, and on Sabbath, the latter should be put in first. Levi, the son of Arhuna bar Haya, once found the herder of his father's cattle pouring water on bran and giving it to the cattle. He scolded him. Afterwards, Arhuna met his son and said to him, thus said the father of thy mother in the name of Rab, meaning Ar Jeremiah bar Abba, it is allowed to pour water on bran, but not to put the mixed bran into the mouth of the cattle. But young cattle that cannot eat themselves may be fed by hand. And this may be done, providing it is done differently than on a weekday. How should that be done? The bran should only be stirred once lengthwise and once crosswise. It will not mix well, however, in this manner, said Ad Yehuda. Then it should be poured into another vessel. We found in the diary of Zerah, no relation. I asked of my master, Arhaya, whether kneading was permitted on the Sabbath, and he said, no. I asked him whether the transferring from one vessel to another was permitted, and he said it was. Said Armenasa, it is allowed to give one animal a measure of grain and 2 measures for 2 animals. But one must not give 3 measures for 2 animals. Aryosef, however, said that a whole cob or even 2 cobs may be given for 1 or 2 or 3 animals, and Ula said that even a cur or more may be given. It was written in the diary of Levi. I related it on the presence of my master, who was Rabbi, the holy of Yehuda Hanasi, that in Babylon they were kneading Shethaitha on the Sabbath, and Rabbi protested against it, but no one paid attention to it, and he had no power to prohibit it, because Arios Bar Yehuda once permitted it, as mentioned previously. It was written in the diary of Ar Yehashua ben Levi, one who was born on the first day of the week will be a man, and not one thing will be in him. What does that mean? That there will be that there will not be any one good thing in him. Did not Arasi say that he was born on the first day of the week? Shall we say that not one bad thing will be in him? Arasi said, I and Dimi Bar Kakusta were both born on the first day of the week, and behold, I am a prince, and he is a leader of robbers. What then is meant by not one thing will be in him? This means that he will be either wholly bad or wholly good. A man who is born on the second day of the week will be a man of violent passion. Why so? Because on the second day the water was separated. A man born on the third day will be rich and lascivious. Why so? Because grass was created on the third day. A man born on the fourth day will be wise and have a good memory. Why so? Because on the fourth clay, the lights were created. So this is very interesting. This is different days of the week. The day of the week that you were born on has a certain benefit. That's okay. So hold on. What day of the week is day one? That's Sunday, right? Because Saturday's the Sabbath. So, what is, okay, hold on. Let me make sure. Talmud, days of the week. Hebrew, the days of the week are named based on the ordinal numbers starting from Sunday. Okay, so... Okay, here's Hebrew. These are the Hebrew names of the days. All right, you've got... Let me bring this up a little bit so we can all read it. We got Yom... Oh my God, sorry. Yom Rishon for Sunday. So that's the first day of the week. And then Saturday is Yom Shishi. The seventh day, Shabbat, is unique as it is not part of the numerical sequence and holds significant religious importance in Judaism. The Hebrew name for the days are simply the day numbers from Yom, meaning day. All right, give me a second here. I want to see. I want to get a little bit more. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, Yom Rishon. So I would have been born on Yom. Yeah, I would have been born on the first day. So Monday is Rishon. I'm sorry. Sunday is Rishon. Monday is Sheni. Tuesday is Shlishai. Wednesday is Revi'ai. Thursday is Shemeshi. Friday is Shishi. And then Saturday is Shabbat. So the idea is that there's only 6 days in a week, and that the Shabbat is just not actually a day. Right? There's something very, interesting about that. But I think that's only, like, is this just a name? This is, I'm assuming this is more of a word play, but this kind of word play could be occulting all sorts of activity done on a Saturday. You see what I mean? So anyway, that's interesting. So there's probably other significances to that, but let's get back to the book. So shall we say the one bad thing will be in him? So Arcee said, I, Dimi Bar Kakuza, were born both on the first day of the week, and behold, I am a prince, and he is a leader of robbers. What then is meant by not one thing will be in him? This means that he will be either wholly bad or wholly good person, or wholly good. A man who was born on the second day of the week will be... Hold on a second. All right, let me go back to the beginning, because I gotta understand me, right? Let me see what they say about a guy of my kind. It is written in the diary of Ad Yeshua ben Levi, one who is born on the first day of the week will be a man, and not one thing will be in him. What does that mean? That there will not be any one good thing in him? Did not Arcee say that he was born on the first day of the week? Shall we say that not one bad thing will be in him? Arcee said, I and Dimi Bar Kakustra were both born on the first day of the week, and behold, I am a prince, and he is a leader of robbers. What then is meant by not one thing will be in him? This means that he will be either wholly bad or wholly good. A man who was born on the second day of the week will be a man of violent passion. Interesting. So that would be Monday. Which is weird, because Monday is Moon's Day for us. Violent passion, that's gonna be fucking Mars. It's gotta be Mars. I mean, you can maybe make a Venus argument, but that's fucking Mars. Why so? Because on the second day, the water was separated. Once again, there's your moon connection. Maybe violently passionate, lunacy. We could say that maybe they're just alluding to traits of lunacy. That would make sense. Violent passion when the water was separated. There's something very poetic about that I appreciate. A man born on the third day will be rich and lascivious. Why so? Because grass was created on the third day. I suppose, like, when you think of the rising up of things like Tyr, Tuesday, that sort of makes sense. A man born on the fourth day will be wise and have good memory. Well, that's Woden's day. Okay, why so? Because on the fourth clay, the lights... I'm sorry, that was supposed to be day, and somebody had a typo, obviously. On the fourth day, the lights were created. A man born on the fifth day will be a charitable man. Why so? Because on that day, the fishes and the fowls were created. Okay, that falls in line with all right. Even though the fifth day is Thor's day over here, right? I think that this is much more about Njord. I feel this is more Njord-like, which would typically be more of a Saturnian character. Like Njord's very Saturnian in a way that people don't get, and in ways that I still need to unpack. But it has a lot to do with the generosity of his haul. Which is a different kind of generosity than that of the Jupiterian expression of it, because of where it comes from. But The Thor quality of like Thor, like the Jupiterian quality though of, you know what? Fishes and fowls, Zeus. No, no, it makes sense. I'm looking at the different qualities of different gods, and no, yeah, I see it. Okay, yeah, because Thor is charitable, you know, because that's a big part of his nature, with friends. Why so? Because on the day the fish fell short, okay, a man born on the 6th day will be a very devout man. So that's on Frere's day. Frere is the Lord's day. So Friday is the Lord's day, when you think about it. He will be zealous in the fulfillment of commandments. A man born on the Sabbath will also die on the Sabbath, because on his account the great day of Sabbath was violated, said Rabba Bar Arshila. He will, however, be called a great and pious man. Okay, very interesting. So think about, like, with these bloodlines, how many of them will use medical treatment to have their kid born on the Sabbath, to be condemned to dying on the Sabbath, which is if that's true, if they run around believing that, they can have all these Jewish guys that by faith alone they have them doing crazy shit because he and they all believe he is not going to die, right? Because the only time he ever possibly could die is on a Sabbath. And you will have yet still many years to your life. Right? That's pretty wild circumstances. Now imagine these elite rabbis that are seeding the world, like in the Bach saga, when they're trying to do that shit and make their fucking kingmakers, right? Okay, good. It's 7:30 already. Let's see. How close are we, by the way, to the page? 1, 2, 3, 4. We still like 5 pages to go. Jesus. All right. All right, that's okay. It's taking the time it's gonna take. I did go through a bit of exposition. Let's take it to the next song. This is Hollow Inside.
Hollow inside.
That was hollow inside. Let me move this over to here real quick.
New protein pockets.
Hush. Alright, these are unskippables. I just want to pause it. I can skip this one. There we go. Good. Alright. So, said Arhanina to the men who related what was written in the diary above, "Go and tell the son of Levi that the fortune of a man does not depend upon the day, but upon the hour he was born in. One who is born in the hour of sunrise will be a bright man. He will eat and drink of his own, but he will not be able to keep secrets and will not be successful in stealing. One who was born under Venus will be a rich man, but will be less vicious." Oh, wait. Okay, this is getting into... This is like some... This is astrology. So, like okay, I thought they were just going to kind of go through the days of the week, you know, almost in a superstitious kind of way, but now this is kind of getting a little bit more astrologically rational. Let me pull back over here. Minute related is the written day of the diary. "Go and tell the son of Levi that the fortune of a man does not depend upon the day, but upon the hour he was born in. One who was born in the hour of sunrise will be a bright man. He will eat and drink of his own, but he will not be able to keep secrets and will not be successful in stealing. One who was born under Venus will be a rich man." So what qualifies as being born under Venus? As with Venus as their midheaven? Is this about midheaven astrology? I wonder if Robert Phoenix knows anything about this. You know? In fact, I actually want... I'm going to text him right now. Hey, dude, I'm doing my live stream right now, and the Talmud is getting into some astrology. And if you can tune in for a minute, I'd like you to see what I am looking at when I'm on page 330. All right. Okay. Okay, one who was born under Mercury will be bright and wise because that star is the scribe of the sun. One who is born under the moon will be sickly or troubled. He will build and demolish, will not eat and drink his own, but will keep secrets and will be successful in stealing. It's like very interesting. I mean, all right, I could see this with Taurus's, I guess, with Taurus and Virgos. No, not Virgo. Virgo is with Mercury. Taurus and, oh my God. Why am I dumb? Who's the other? Libra. Oi. Taurus and Libra. So I guess I can see that with Taurus and Libra. Because they would theoretically be born under Venus in that manner. Because, you know, we have to look at, the only thing I can go with is how much does Venus matter? Is Venus, I would say that they might mean it in the sense, because this wouldn't be useful for a whole lot of people. Not everybody has planets in their midheaven. Maybe they explain that later, but fire is generated under Venus, which is an interesting statement to make. All right, so because that star is described with the sun, right? So one who was born under the moon would be sickly or troubled. I mean, like, I know a lot of cancers that kind of fit that bill. One who was born under Saturn will have all his thoughts and aims come to naught, and others say, to the contrary, all aims against him will come to naught. One who was born under Jupiter will be a righteous man, and Ar-Nahaman ben Atziak said he will be very devout. One who was born under Mars will be a man who will shed blood. He will either be a surgeon or a robber, a butcher, or a circumciser. I have become none of those things, thank you very much. Said Arashi Rabba, said that he was born under Mars. Said Abai to him, thou master reprovest men, and whom thou reprovest he dieth. Hence they also sheddest blood. Reprovest? And that is like shedding... What? What does that mean? It sounds weird. All right, well, it doesn't see the word pop up. So let me take Talmud out of it, because Talmud is distracting it. All right. Verb, archaic third person singular, simple present, indicative form of reprove? What? Thank for the reprovest me of my misdeed. What? All right, so let me get reprove. He was reproved of obscenity. Don't be childish, Hillary. He reproved mildly. Okay. We get the Merriam-Webster. To scold or correct. Oh, okay, I get it. Oh, I get it. All right. In short, it just means he's the fucker who does something about it. He enforces law effectively. It was taught, Arhanina said, one who is born under a lucky star may be either rich or wise, and the same thing applies to Israelites also. Ar Yohanan said, an Israelite does not come under this fate. And Ar Yohanan says, this in accordance with his dictum. Elsewhere, via, whence do we know that the Israelites are not subject to fate? Because it is written in Jeremiah 10:2, thus hath said the Lord, do not habituate yourselves in the ways of the nations, and at the okay, there's some bad writing here. Do not habituate yourselves in the way of the nations, and that of the heavens be ye not dismayed. I'm going to go with that. Although the nations should be dismayed at them, so the nations may be dismayed at the signs of the heavens, but not the Israelites, and Rab holds likewise that the Israelites are not subject to fate. Ar Yehuda said in the name of Rab, whence do we know that the Israelites are not subject to fate? Because it is written in Genesis 15:5, and he brought him forth abroad. Abraham said before the Holy One, blessed be he, creator of the universe, lo, one born in my house will be my heir. And the Lord answered, he shall answered that he that shall come forth out of thy own bowels shall be thy heir. Genesis 15:4. And Abraham said again, creator of the universe, I have consulted my horoscope and have found that I am not capable of having a son. So the Lord said to him, away with thy horoscope, an Israelite hath no fate. Of Samuel it is also known that he thought the Israelites had no destiny, for Samuel and Ablat were once sitting together, and some men went past a meadow. Ablat, who was an astrologer, said to Samuel, pointing to one of the men, that man will not return a snake. That man will not return. A snake will not bite him, and he will die. A snake will bite him, and he will die, said Samuel. If he is an Israelite, he will come back. While they were talking, the man came back. So Ablat arose and examined him, and he found a snake cut in on the man's clothes. Said Samuel to the man, what didst thou do today, that thou hast escaped death? The man answered, it is our custom when going out with a party of men that we all contribute our share of victuals, and then have our meal in common. I knew that one of our party had no bread, victuals, and not wishing to make him ashamed, I secured the basket to gather the food, and when coining up to him, I pretended to put in his share, but in reality put in mine, and thus he was not ashamed. Then thou hast committed an act of charity, said Samuel, and when he went out, he preached that charity may be the cause of saving a man's life, and not only from a violent death, but also from death which otherwise would have overtaken a man naturally. Of Ar-Akiba, it is also written that he did not believe the Israelites to be subject to fate, for Ar-Akiba had a daughter, and the soothsayer predicted that on the day on which she should enter the garden, a snake would bite her and she would die. He was very much troubled on that account. One day his daughter took off her headdress in the garden, and a needle protruding from it stuck on the side of the fence where a snake happened to be, and piercing the eye of the snake, the latter was killed. When Ar-Akiba's daughter went back to the house, the snake dragged after her. Asked Ar-Akiba, what didst thou do today to escape death? And she answered, at dawn a man came to the door begging bread. Everybody, however, was at table, and no one heard him but myself. I took my own meal that thou gavest me, and gave it to him, said Ar-Akiba. Thou didst an act of charity, and this saved thee from death. He then went forth and preached that charity may be the cause of saving a man's life, and not only from a violent death, but also from one that was to have come naturally. Ar-Naaman bar Etziak is also known to discountenance the theory of the Israelites being subject to fate, for the mother of Ar-Naaman was told by astrologers that her son would turn out to be a thief, so she would not let him go out bare-headed, saying, always keep thy head covered, that thou mayest fear the Lord and pray to him for mercy. And he did not know why she always told him this. One day he sat underneath a tree studying when his headwear fell off, and looking up he saw the tree filled with delicious dates. He was very much tempted to take some of the fruit, although the tree did not belong to him, and accordingly climbed the tree and bit off a branch with his teeth. That sounds like a Garden of Eden story. That's like failure 101 right there. Mishnah. Pumpkin may be cut up for cattle and carrion for dogs. Ad Yehuda saith, if the carrion was not yet carrion, if the beast had not yet died before the Sabbath, it must not be cut up, because in that case, it is not part of what had been provided for consumption on Sabbath. Gemara, it was taught, Ula said, the halakha prevails according to Ad Yehuda and of Rab. It is also known that he agrees with Ad Yehuda, as may be seen from his decree concerning covers of a vessel. Levi also admits that the halakha prevails according to Ad Yehuda, for when a carcass was brought to him for decision as to its fitness for use, unfitness on a festival, he would not inspect it unless it had lain in the dirt, because should he hold it to be fit, it would forthwith become carrion and not even be fit for dogs, by reason of its turning into carrion on the festival and thus not having been provided on the day before for consumption on the festival. Samuel, however, said that the halakha prevails according to our Simon, as also does Zerah, because a Mishnah elsewhere which teaches that if an animal died on Sabbath or on a festival, it must not be removed, was explained by Zerah to refer only to such an animal as was designated for sacrifice and which must not be made use of at all, but any ordinary carcass may be removed. Ach Yohanan also said that the halakha, according to Ar Simon, prevails. Is it possible that Ar Yohanan said this? Have we not learned that Ar Yohanan always holds halakhas to be in accordance with the abstract decree of the Mishnah? And in another Mishnah, we have learned that the wood of a beam that had been broken on a festival must not be used on the festival. Ar Yohanan claims that the Mishnah above was taught in the name of Ar Yos bar Yehuda. Come and hear another objection. It is permitted to commence taking from a heap of straw on a festival for use as fuel. But not from wood designated for another purpose. This is also taught abstractly and is certainly contrary to the opinion of Ar Simon. This above teaching refers to cedar beams intended for building purposes and being very expensive should not be used as fuel even according to Ar Simon. Listen, as somebody who works in construction, I understand the asinine process and procedures of getting something properly done with improvised circumstances. 99% of this is just a format of explaining how things work by bringing up all these goddamn scenarios, like bringing up every chaotic scenario one could think of on the job site. It's like working for a company that's got a break day regulation. Anyway. Oh my gosh. Is it possible that Ar Yohanan said this? Have we now learned from Ar Yohanan always holds halakha to be in accordance with the abstract decree of the Mishnah? And in another Mishnah, we have learned that the wood of a beam that had been broken on a festival must not be used on the festival. Ar Yohanan claims that the Mishnah above was taught in the name of Ar Yos bar Yehuda. Come and hear another objection. It is permitted to commence taking from a heap of straw on festival for use as fuel, but not from wood designated for another purpose. Oh, I did read all this. I am so very sorry. Let's skip over it. Eyes glazing. Eyes glazing. It's the great and worthy effort. This is the great work, folks. This is the pain of it all. Come and hear another objection based upon another abstract Mishnah. It is not permitted to water or to slaughter animals living in their wildest natural state, but it is allowed to regard domestic animals. This is also contrary to Ar Simon. Ar Yohanan, however, found an abstract Mishnah that was in accord with Ar Simon via that Mishnah concerning bones and husks which may be removed from the table. And Ar Yohanan holds, as Ar Nahman did later, that all decisions rendered by the schools of Shammai are in accordance with the opinion of Ar Yehuda, while those rendered by the school of Hillel agree with those of Ar Simon. So Yehuda and Simon are these guys must be the highest authority of each school in the realm of the debate. It is related. Hold on a second. Okay. We got 3 pages left. Technically 2 pages left. We'll pause right here. Perfect place to take the last break. We'll do a last break, and then we'll finish the chapter. And then the next show, hopefully I'll be able to nail one in the middle of the week next week. We'll finish the book, I think. I think we're going to be able to finish the book because we're going to be on page 34, 5. Yeah, this is like the end of it. The last 10 pages is this, the prayer at the conclusion of a tract. Then we're going to read all this and break that down. That'll be the next show. Okay. Let me pull up the last song for the night. We are going to listen to The Cromlech Gate. Alright. Here we are, we're back. So, as the last segment of the show tonight, it is related of Or Eharabina that one said that all laws pertaining to Sabbath remain as decreed by Ar Simon, with the exception of the one thing that had been set aside on account of causing disgust, namely an old candlestick that had become soiled with the dripping tallow, and the other said that even in this instance the halakha prevails according to Ar Simon, but the one thing that does not remain as decreed by Ar Simon is the case of a candlestick, which had been used on the same Sabbath. Both admit, however, that as for the theory of designation, where expensive articles are concerned, Ar Simon accepts it in that case and declares that they may not be used on Sabbath, as we have learned in a Mishnah concerning the large wood saw and the plowshare, which according to Ar Simon also must not be handled because they are expensive, and being used only by mechanics should not be handled by others. Mishnah, a man may annul vows of his wife or daughter on the Sabbath and consult a sage as to vows relating to objects required for the Sabbath. Window light may be shut out by blinds, a piece of stuff may be measured, and also a mikvah, plunge bath, to ascertain whether it be of legal size. It happened in the days of Zadok's father, Zadok is where we get Zadokites, Melchizedek, and the Essenes and the Zealots. In the days of Abba Saul ben Botnith, that they closed a window with an earthen jar and then tied another vessel to a pole with papyrus, in order to ascertain whether in a covered vessel there was an opening one span high or not. From them we learn that in certain cases it may be permitted to close, to measure, and to tie on the Sabbath. Gemara, the schoolmen, propounded a question: does the term required for the Sabbath in connection with vows apply to both clauses of that sentence? And if it does not, neither may be done on the Sabbath. Whence we shall learn that the time in which a man may annul the vow of his wife or daughter does not expire with the day, but continues for 24 hours, because if the vows do not relate to the Sabbath and neither of the above two clauses may be executed, the man can annul the vows at night after the Sabbath. Or shall we say that the term required for the Sabbath applies only to the latter clause, that of consulting as to vows, and not to the first clause, that of annulling the vows, which would establish the fact that the time for annulment expires with the day and does not continue for 24 hours. Come and hear. Arzoti, one of the disciples of Arpapi, taught that only such vows as relate to the Sabbath may be annulled on the Sabbath. Thence we may learn that the time for annulment of vows does not expire for 24 hours, said Ar-Ashi. Did we not learn in a Mishnah of Tract Nederim that the time for annulment of vows continues for 1 day only? Concerning this, there is a difference of opinion among the Tanaim, as will be explained in Tract Nederim. And consult as to vows, etc. The schoolman propounded a question. Does this mean to say that the man had not time before Sabbath, i.e., that he made the vows on the Sabbath, or even if he had time before the Sabbath but wishes to be released from his vows at once? Come and hear, the rabbis complied, with the wish of Arzutra, the son of Arzera, and release him from his vows on a Sabbath, although we had plenty of time to have this done before Sabbath. Aryos wished to state that as to vows, a man may consult on Sabbath only a man who is a competent authority, or a shekem. But he must not consult 3 ordinary men, because that would appear as a judgment on business affairs. Abai said to him, whereas 3 men may be consulted standing, or even if they are of kin, or even at night, it will not appear as an ordinary judgment. When a man wishes to annul the vows of his wife on the Sabbath, he must not say to her, as on a weekday, thy vow is annulled, or I release thee from thy vow, but merely go and eat or go and drink, and this releases her from her vow, said Yohanan. The man must, however, think at the time that he is annulling her vow. We have learned in Aboretha, the school of Shammai said, on Sabbath, a man must annul the vow in his mind only, but on a weekday he must proclaim it by word of mouth. The school of Hillel said, however that be it Sabbath or a weekday, it is sufficient if the man annul the vow in his mind without proclaiming it. They closed a window with an earthen jar, etc., said Ar Yehuda. In the name of Rab, there was a small bridge between 2 houses, and underneath the bridge lay a part of a corpse, and a cracked tub stood on top and the 2 houses, but it was not known whether the crack in the tub was large enough to admit of the penetration of the uncleanness arising from the corpse. So, first of all holes which were in the walls of the 2 houses were stopped up by the towels. Then another vessel, a small jar, was tied with a papyrus to a pole and laid on the tub in order to see whether the crack was 1 span deep or not. From them we learn that in certain cases one may close measure, etc. Ula once came into the house of the Exilarch on Saturday and saw Rabba bar Arhuna sitting in a tub of water and measuring it. Said Ula to him, the rabbis only permitted the measuring of a plunge bath for ritual purpose, but did they permit it to be done for no purpose? Rabba bar Arhuna answered, I am doing this merely to while I'm away the time. I have nothing else to do and must not think of the law while bathing, so it makes no difference. End of Tract Sabbath. Here are our footnotes. Ugh. Then you reach the prayer, and is the prayer the whole 10 page? No. Okay, the prayer is a short bit, actually. It's not a whole bit. And then we're in the appendix. Domination of priest, for high precision. Okay. I want to read the appendix on the next show. And I'm looking at the format. This is this is more written by the translator stuff. I can tell. Right? It's not going on and on with quoting this person or that person endlessly. This is a straightforward explanation of things. Okay? But how long is this prayer again? Maybe I should read the prayer. It's not very long. What is it? 2 pages? 2-page prayer. Give me a second. Got plenty of time in this segment left. I want to sign off on this a little toasty. The prayer at the conclusion of a tract. Bai said, "May it be reckoned to me for my reward in the world to come, that whenever I noticed a young scholar of my college had finished a tract to the Talmud, I gave a feast to all the sages of the day." Pages 250 and 251 of this tract. Bearing the above motto in mind, and as a matter of peculiar interest, we shall translate below the laudatory prayer published in every edition of the ancient Talmud at the conclusion of each tract, and in justification of this our digression from the actual text would state the following. Okay, so in the original in Hebrew Talmud, the format would have been longer just because of repetition in writing of this prayer. So when you are reading the Talmud, the way that they do it in the college, so very wise move. Imagine if I fucking read a translation that didn't do that. Ugh, God, I didn't even look for that. Anyway. With all pious Israelites who were exclusively engaged in the study of the Talmud, and even with those who made it an incidental feature of their lives, it has since time immemorial been the custom to celebrate as a happy event the completion of the study of each tract. So marked was the degree of gratification of this frequent occurrence that it became customary for the firstborn sons of Israel, who, in commemoration of one of the plagues sent by the Lord upon the Egyptians, were in the habit of fasting on the eve of Passover to complete the study of a tract of the Talmud on that day, and thanks to the feast given in honor of the occasion, escaped the rather onerous duty of fasting, and even in the 9 days of penance occurring before the fast of the 9th of Ab, when the temple was destroyed, when meat was not to be eaten, and wine was not to be drunk, and the same subterfuge would be resorted to in order that a feast might be given, and thus break the fast of the 9 days. Apart from this, the prayer is rich in sentiment and deserves to be rendered at the end of this volume once for all. We shall return to thee, tract Sabbath, and mayest thou return to us. We shall bear thee in mind, tract Sabbath, and mayest thou bear us in mind. May we not be forgotten by thee, tract Sabbath, and thou shalt not be forgotten by us on this earth, nor in the world to come. You're talking to a book like it's God now. This is a prayer that you would say to a god. And this isn't even the fucking Bible. This is to be repeated 3 times when the following is to be recited. May it be thy will, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, that thy law may be our pursuit in this world and in the world to come. May there be together with us in the world to come Hanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Naman bar Papa, Ahaya bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rakesh bar Papa, Sorha bar Papa, Eda bar Papa, and Doro bar Papa. Make sweet, O Lord our God, the words of thy law in our mouths, and in the mouths of the people, the house of Israel, and may we, our children, and the children of thy people, the house of Israel, all know thy name and learn thy law. Wiser than my enemy doth thy commandment make me, for it is perpetually with me. Let my heart be entire in the statutes. Let my heart be entirely in the statutes, that I may not be put to shame. Imagine like pledging allegiance to the statutes of the driving code of the Department of Transportation. That's ridiculous. Anyway, never will I forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast kept me alive. Blessed art thou, O Lord. Teach me thy statutes. Amen, amen, amen. Selah ve'ad, forever. We thank thee, O Lord, our God and God of our fathers, that thou hast cast our lot amongst those that dwell in the houses of learning, and not amongst the occupants of the markets, for we arise early, and they arise early. We arise to the words of law, and they arise to the words of vanity. We strive, and they strive. We strive, and receive our reward, while they strive in vain. We run, and they run. We run towards everlasting life, and they run towards death, as it is written. But thou, O God, thou wilt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Let not the men of blood and deceit live out half their days, but I will indeed trust in thee. May it be thy will, O Lord, my God, that as thou hast assisted me in the conclusion of tract Sabbath, so mayest thou assist me in the commencement of other tracts and books of law, and in their conclusion, that I may live to learn and teach, to observe and to do and to keep all the words of the teachings of thy law with affection. Oh boy, there's a whole lot to dump on just, like, and this is for just any average Joe. This isn't like priest class stuff. The problem is that it probably used to be priest class stuff. And then I think what happened was they had a revolution a long time ago, and all the kids made the priest class communist, because the priest class happened to be a welfare program. That was always meant to be a grift for the higher bloodlines, which is why they had to create the 2 tiers of temple priests. And then from that tradition forward, they constructed the history that we know, which you have misplaced the idea of its birthright. Anyway, may it be thy will, O Lord my God, that thou hast assisted me in the conclusion of tract Sabbath. And teach and observe the law of affection. Okay. And may the merits of all the Tanaim and Amoraim and other scholars uphold me and my children, in order that the law may not escape from my mouth, from the mouths of my children and children's children forever, and may it be verified in me all that is written. When thou walkest, it shall lead thee. When thou liest down, it shall watch over thee. And when thou art awake, it shall converse with thee. For through me shall thy days be multiplied, and thy years of thy life shall be increased unto thee. Length of days are in her right hand, in her left are riches and honor. Lord shall give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. All right. So we went through all that. And so, like I said, this thing about Jesus, like where, okay. Talmud citation. Jesus. All right, the Aramaic vocalization, term Yeshua, passages of Yeshua are often confirmed. Okay. All right, so what's this say? What does Talmud say about Jesus? And Talmud says Jesus is boiling. Okay, so this is in something called Gittin, 57a34, right? So Gittin was not cited in that reference of Talmud, right? So, like, there's a bunch of stuff in the collection. Onkelos then went and raised Jesus the Nazarene from the grave through necromancy. Onkelos said to him, "Who is most important in the world where you are now?" Jesus said to him, "The Jewish people." Onkelos asked him, "Should I then attach myself to them in this world?" Jesus said to him, "Their welfare you shall seek, their misfortune you shall not seek. For anyone who touches them is regarded as if he were touching the apple of his eye." See Zechariah 2:12. Okay, well that's not that doesn't make Jesus sound bad. All right? Onkelos said to him, "What is the punishment of that man?" Euphemism for Jesus himself. "In the next world." Jesus said, wait, what? Jesus said to him, "He is punished with boiling excrement." As the master said, anyone who mocks the words of the sages will be sentenced to boiling excrement. And this was his sins, as he mocked the words of the sages. The Gemara commences, come and see, different between sinners of Israel and the prophets of the notions of the world is Balaam, who was a prophet, wished Israel harm, whereas Jesus the Nazarene, who was a Jewish sinner, sought their well-being. But that doesn't, but that was phrased so, like, up here on top, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to say, what is the punishment of that man? A euphemism for Jesus himself. Well, what is he, but he's right there answering it, though. He makes the answer and says that that man is punished with boiling excrement. As the master said, anyone who mocks the words of the sages will be sentenced. So none of that makes sense to me, you see, right? Uncle said, "What is the punishment of that man?" Okay, that include. One second. Let me try. No, not library. Shoot, how do I want to search. I want to search the words. I want to do word search in here. How do I do that? All right, forget it. that's the end of the that's the end of the show tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out. The mystery of Jesus boiling in excrement. I'll see if I can figure. I'm gonna see if I can figure that shit out. Literally. To go along with the appendix read that we're going to do next time. Let me see how you guys are doing in the chat room before I close out. I think it's been pretty quiet over here. Yes, it has. And the live stream has been going just fine. Great. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you later.